So hi, my name is Patty Burrito, and I am the founder and owner of Holistic Healing Atlanta. And so Holistic Healing Atlanta kind of sums up what I do. I incorporate the body, the mind, and the soul to help people heal. I use the best practices of psychotherapy. I also incorporate quantum neuro reset therapy, which helps balance the brain and reduce traumas that are held in the limbic system. I also use holistic methylation, which identifies some of the genes that are expressing themselves or not working and working properly. And then we supplement through supplements to support them. I address diet, lifestyle, sleep, relaxation, and spiritual issues as well, because I feel like you really need to have all three of those issues, of those three: body, mind, and soul, sort of like a stool with the three legs in order to heal. And if you miss one of those areas, you're going to wobble. If you miss two, you're really going to have to balance just on one leg. So how did I get to Holistic Healing Atlanta? Well, we moved here to Atlanta in 1996, and I was not used to the fast pace and the traffic, and I have 5 children, and my husband traveled a lot, so there was 5 kids on 5 different soccer teams, and I had to drive all over the place, and I became exhausted and overwhelmed. So I was a spiritual director, and he suggested that maybe I could start counseling. So I thought, well, why not? I will do that. Anyway, eventually the therapist said, well, maybe you should be on an antidepressant. So I thought, well, why not? I never thought twice about it. But nobody ever checked what was I eating, what were my vitamin D levels, what my vitamin B12 levels, or my thyroid function were, because all 3 of those things can have the same symptoms as depression. So long story short, I probably was on 50 or 60 different drug combinations, and supposedly for my depression, but I never got better with any of them. I only got worse. I went through hell with the pharmaceuticals, and I didn't have to do that. Eventually, with the psychiatrist's assistance, I got off all of them, and I just did the therapy, and I eventually got better. So that was about 20 years ago. Then about 8 years ago, I was having migraines, and I decided to go to see a neurologist, and he wanted me to take amitriptyline full time, which is an old-fashioned antidepressant, and Imitrex when I got the migraines. But my husband and I decided, with my history of the antidepressants never working, that it would be good that I didn't get on that. So anyway, the neurologist didn't like the fact that I didn't want to take that. I ruined his science fair project. And so he was kind of mad at me. But then I asked him, well, why do you think I have the migraines? He said, because you're depressed. I said, well, I'm not depressed. I know what depression is. He said, well, I've never met anybody who's overcome depression. As a matter of fact, I would like to meet somebody someday that has overcome depression. So I left his office and I said, I am done with you. I didn't say anything to him. And I started to look for somebody who would address the underlying issues of the root cause. So I started my own personal journey into the functional medicine world. And functional medicine really just means looking for the root causes instead of just giving a pill for the ill. And certainly there is a reason to take pharmaceuticals. I am exquisitely sensitive to them, so I tend not to want to take any of them. So, and I started to learn that what I ate made a difference in how I felt, both physically and emotionally. You know, up to that point, I figured my liver was doing its job. It was cleaning out the toxins, and it was like life was good. But when I took out gluten, that was the only thing that I initially took out. My neck stopped hurting. It was like about 6 months later, I thought, gosh, my neck doesn't hurt. And I had a rash on my back, and that totally just went away. So that was good, because it was itching. So then my big question now is, does what you eat affect how you feel? Well, I have my personal story, and but I'd like to dive into it a little bit deeper. So, and basically, we're used to not feeling well. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to give you an example. My two youngest boys played lacrosse, and they were kind of messy. Don't tell them I said that. But their rooms had stuff all over it. They had lacrosse equipment, they had school books, they had their clothes on the floor, whatever. And that was just not a battle that I was going to deal with them. I just closed the door. But if I went into the room and dropped the gum wrapper, you would never notice that I dropped it because it was messy in there. But when I went into their room, we cleaned it all up. If I dropped that same gum wrapper, you would notice it. And that's kind of like our diet. When we clean up our diet, and then we start eating things that aren't good for us, we can start to notice that stuff. So, another example that I want to talk about is that I want you to think of a speedometer, and 100 is total wellness. 0 is dead. And so most people, when they get to like about halfway, is when maybe symptoms start showing up. And then as they get down to like 30 or 40, that's when they go see a doctor. And they say, I have these symptoms. And so the doctor will give them typically a pill for the ill instead of saying, well, why do you feel that way? What can we do besides give you a pharmaceutical for it? They will tend to, and then they'll take the drug, and then when they start feeling better and the symptoms go away, they will say, I'm healthy again. But the fact is they're not healthy, just the symptoms have gone away. So symptom-free does not mean healthy. Okay, so depression and anxiety is rampant. But let me go back to something. So even with what's going on in the world with the coronavirus, one of the things that we can do, the strongest thing we can do is look at our gut and our health and start saying, well, what am I eating? Because it can cause problems in the rest of our bodies, causes inflammation. So I'll circle back to that. Anyway, depression and anxiety is rampant in the Western countries, and we have more money and more privilege than anywhere else in the world. But 1 in 4 adults in the US, that's more than 26% of the population, suffer from a diagnosable mental disorder. Anxiety. More than 40 million Americans suffer from anxiety. That's like nearly 10% of the adult population has a mood disorder for which drugs, and they're very powerful, are prescribed. So that's about 30 million people on psychiatric drugs. Depression, which affects 1 in 10, and including a quarter of women in their 40s and 50s, is now the leading cause of disability in the world. So like, what is going on? I mean, it used to not be that way. So it used to be thought that, and this is still pretty prevalent, that depression was a chemical imbalance or deficiency particularly of the key neurotransmitters, such as serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. But science has actually shown, and there's a lot of research, that inflammatory cytokines impact the brain and reduce the quality of the neurotransmitters produced and the sensitivity of the neurotransmitter interactions. So one major inflammatory mediator is the cytokine. And the cytokine are cells signaling molecules that aid cell-to-cell communication in immune responses. So it's getting kind of technical, but you just know that the inflammation signals out these cytokines. Okay? So individuals with depression have been shown to have higher levels of inflammatory cytokines in their brain tissue. The drugs that are used to treat the supposed imbalance, the chemical imbalance, merely just treat the symptoms with a whole bunch of side effects. I mean, do you know that if you get a prescription of antidepressant, on the packaging it says that it could cause an increase of suicide risk? Again, these drugs aren't addressing the underlying issue. So again, with my own example, no one ever checked what I was eating, my vitamin B12 level, my vitamin D level, or my thyroid function, which all can be the same symptoms as depression. So the first thing we gotta look at is our gut health. So a lot of research link gut microbiome, your gut health, and mental health. The gut health manufactures about 95% of the body's supply of serotonin, which influences our mood and our GI activity. When the gut health is compromised, the pathogens can invade and wreak havoc. So the pathogens can secrete toxins and can increase the inflammatory cytokine. So what happens is that we have our gut lining, and it has all these like they're villi, they're like little fingers, and that's where the food gets absorbed, and there's tight junctions. So if you look to the left, it says tight junction. That keeps the food and toxins from getting into the bloodstream. If you look to the right, you start seeing that it is opened up, the tight junctions, and that can be from food, it can be from pharmaceuticals, it can be from stress, and it can be from just toxins. We take in toxins all over, through our food and things. But when it gets too much, it starts opening up. Now we're going to start with symptoms. So part of the job here is we're going to want to heal the gut. So we need to reduce the inflammation, eliminate certain foods, and heal the gut lining. Okay. So what do? Right away, we're going to start eliminating some foods. And it's pretty general that there's certain foods that are not good for us. So we have packaged foods. So read the labels. Can you pronounce the ingredients on those labels? Would grandma recognize the food, the packaged food? Anyway, read labels. You'll be amazed at what you find in it. Sugar. Sugar is in so many things, and it's under different labels. So you have to get familiar with the different names that the manufacturers use for sugar. But the body can't, it gets too much, it can't process it, and then it sends the pro-inflammatory messengers or the cytokines, and that can also lead to anxiety and depression. The processed foods have all sorts of additives, artificial flavorings, artificial colorings, and chemicals to preserve food. Do you ever consider why those things are added? Why do we need to have our food preserved, like on a shelf for like a shelf life of 5 years or 2 years? What's doing that? It's the chemicals. Why do you have to put artificial coloring? Think about popsicles, they're red. Why do they have to put red to make so it's more appealing, so people will eat more of it? With artificial flavorings, you have aspartame, you have MSG, you have high fructose corn syrup, you have guar gum, you have trans fats, and then artificial flavorings. Artificial flavorings are just chemicals. So anyway, there's a bunch of chemicals that I can't even pronounce, so why are we eating them? Next thing, gluten. For some people, and that's me, gluten sensitivity can increase anxiety, bipolar, depression, schizophrenia. I've had clients where when we have eliminated inflammatory foods, that they get better. And I'll talk about some of the stuff that we can add in there besides when we take gluten out. People will say, well, that's just a big made up thing. I know that if I eat gluten in 30 minutes, I will have a migraine. That's one of my migraine triggers. Okay, so then you have vegetable oils. So they're processed, and they're processed at such high heat, it turns anything that's good into it. So I'm talking about corn oil, canola oil, soybean oil, sapphire oil, cottonseed, peanut oil, and they're high in omega-6 fatty acids. And that's not really good for it. We need omega-3s for our mental health, particularly it's our brain that needs the omega-3. Okay, next thing that can trigger anxiety and depression, particularly anxiety, is caffeine. We are in a Starbucks world that everybody stops by to get their caffeine, their lattes or whatever, and other caffeinated drinks such as sodas and energy drinks. But it can cause people to be jittery. It can cause them to have a fight or flight, response, and like as anxiety. And they're also, the sodas are full of sugar and artificial ingredients that can further trigger anxiety. So if you're suffering from anxiety, I mean, first thing I would do is cut out your caffeine, cut out your gluten. Okay? If you're drinking can be a problem. Alcohol, you know, people might say, well, I'm going to take this drink so that I can sleep better. That's a false thing. You'll fall asleep, but you won't stay in a good deep sleep, if that is. But I had a client, a young man, and he had a lot of panic attacks, particularly like Sunday or Monday. So eventually I was able to get him to track back. So on Friday or Saturday, he drank a lot. And by him eliminating both the coffee and the alcohol, he was able to stop the panic attacks. Okay. There's another thing that also is a problem. It's our blood-brain barrier, and that's designed to just allow small nutrients to pass into the brain, and it protects the brain against oxidative stress and infectious microbes and chronic infection. But when we are eating things that are inflammatory, just like our gut, it also can get to our brain, these inflammatory things. So not good. When the blood sugar is thrown off balance, it can open the blood-brain barrier and allow toxins to cross. And again, when the blood-brain barrier is compromised, anxiety and depression can occur. The blood sugar imbalances also can lead to nutrient deficiencies, particularly in the vitamin Bs and trace minerals and magnesium. And I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. So what do we need to be eating for physical and mental wellness, for optimal wellness? Now, first of all, the brain is made up of water, fat, and cholesterol. And so guess what? We need water, fat, and cholesterol for a healthy brain function. I used to have a client that she had a fear of eating any fat, and we need fat to lose fat. We need fat for our healthy brain and the neurotransmitters and our hormones. You know, all of our sex hormones are made from cholesterol. So if we have a low-fat diet, guess what? We might be depressed. Now, an anti-inflammatory diet is going to look different for different people. So, but here's the gist of it. So across the board, we can just do some of this stuff. Okay, so we're looking for a nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory, healing foods. And basically, it's things like dark green vegetables, such as kale, spinach, Swiss chard, non-starchy vegetables, such as cucumber, celery, herbs, and then herbs such as turmeric, ginger, rosemary, and cinnamon. But just because I say turmeric is good, turmeric isn't good for everyone. Turmeric is anti-inflammatory, but it's not good for everyone. We have low glycemic fruits such as berries and lemons. So low glycemic index means that when I eat it, my blood sugar doesn't bounce way up. So again, berries and then lemons are examples of that. And then we need some healthy fats. So healthy fats are going to look like avocados, organic ghee and butter, coconut oil, olive oil. And then we need clean protein. So this is a big pet peeve of mine. If you have conventionally farmed meat, it's full of hormones and antibiotics, and it helps them grow faster and keeps them from being sick, but it also has less minerals and vitamins, but it also has more toxic things in us. So you think about if the animals are being fed hormones to help them grow faster, where do you think those hormones go in us? So you think about like man boobs. some of that can be a hormonal imbalance. Some other good things. So we would look for grass-fed beef. We look for pastured chicken, pastured eggs. Like, by the way, conventionally farmed cattle, they eat corn, but corn isn't a natural food for cows. Grass is, and so they're hungry, so they'll eat it. But I don't know that it's very good. So a very important part of our health, particularly for the neurotransmitters, and that's what helps us make us feel good. We have serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, is vitamin B sources. So particularly B12. Now, for me, I have a genetic mutation, and so I can't methylate vitamin B12 very well. So I need to be supported in that. But it's naturally found in animal products, such as fish, meat, poultry, eggs, milk products. It's not in plant foods. So people who are vegetarians and vegans have to be really careful, and particularly if they have a mutation in those genes, that the MTHR genes, they should not be vegetarians and vegans if they want to have optimal wellness, or they have to supplement. Okay. Then we have magnesium. Magnesium is needed for more than 300 biochemical reactions in the body. It helps to maintain normal nerve and muscle function, and it helps support a healthy immune system. It keeps our heartbeat steady and bone strong. It helps to adjust the blood glucose levels, and it aids in the production of energy and protein. It's also a relaxation kind of thing. So if you're taking magnesium, sometimes taking it before you go to bed will help you relax. So here's the good news about magnesium. It is found in dark chocolate, not milk chocolate, but dark chocolate. So you can have some dark chocolate. You can find the magnesium in avocados, nuts, legumes. They have a lot of magnesium in their seeds, whole grains, and some fatty fishes, particularly salmon. So the other thing is that for a lot of people, they need to be low in carbs. Not everybody needs to be low in carb, but what happens is that when you're in high carbs, your body, it turns it into sugar. And so for me personally, I can't handle a lot of carbs or sugar in my diet. It causes inflammation in my body. So like, how would you know which ones are good for you? There's a food test that is really good. It's pretty inexpensive. It goes on sale for like about $139, and it's a stool test. It's called Viome, Viome.com, and you order a test kit, and you submit a stool sample, and then it comes back in about 3 weeks, and it tells you these are your superfoods. Eat lots of them. And then it says enjoy these foods, and then it says minimize certain foods, and then avoid certain foods. And it's a good, inexpensive test to kind of check it out. I mean, I would just say go ahead and do it. So the next thing we got to talk about are some other things. So we can change our diet, but if you're leading a lot of crazy life over there, no supplement, no food is going to heal you. So you have to also look holistically at everything. So sleep is like your best friend. And how are you sleeping? Are you getting a good night of sleep, 7 to 8 hours, or even if you need 9 hours? Are you able to go to sleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed? If you're not, then you have to look about a few things. People who go to bed, people's best sleep is from 10 to 2. So if you're going to bed at 11:30, you're missing most of your good sleep time. If you're having trouble sleeping, I would say check some things out. How much screen time are you using before you go to bed? Maybe what you need to do is limit no screens, no TV, no iPad, phone, no computer for 2 hours before you actually want to go to sleep. What are you eating and drinking before you go to bed? That's another important thing. And is your room cool enough? So sometimes if your room is too warm, you're going to have some problems. At least I do. So again, you're going to clean up your diet. You're going to follow an anti-inflammatory diet. A big thing here, and I sort of mentioned it, is put your screens down. Screens are causing so much anxiety and depression. We're more connected than we ever have, and yet it's destroying us. So it destroys our ability to communicate. It destroys our relationships. If I could get rid of phones, I'd save a lot of marriages. It also is a problem with just being able to have conversations. We're lonely. We might go on social media and we feel like we're connected because we post something, get lots of likes, but it leaves us a sense of loneliness. Okay, go outside. Outside is my favorite place. Be in nature, go to a park, take a long walk, do deep breathing. You know, nature is healing in itself. There's just something very calming about that. You know, if you go out and you can walk in some woods, or you know, if you live in the city, it's a little bit tougher, but finding that is really important. If you just have to go outside, that's good. Even, you know, the one thing I like about being in the woods, it's quiet, because noise can be stressful to us. Exercise. Now, there are people who don't like to exercise. We have people who like to exercise and people who don't like to exercise. But what I would say is find something that you enjoy and that you will do on a regular basis. Okay. I'm a big advocate of supplementing with omega-3 fatty acids. So I would just say with that, make sure whatever you're using that it's not coming from the drugstore or the grocery store. I mean, there's certain grocery stores that would be okay, because you don't want rancid fish oil. That's when you're burping up fish oil, if you've ever taken it, that's the problem. Okay. Deep breathing, deep diaphragmatic breathing. And how do you know you're doing? Most people just breathe from the top part of their lungs, but deep breathing is when you take a breath in and you put your hand on your belly. Does your belly go up first? And then your lungs expand. You can hold it for 4 and then breathe back out slowly. You can count. You can count like 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it 4. There's all sorts of counting numbers. Sometimes what I do is I make it a prayer. It's like, Jesus, I trust in you. Back out. And then I just also wanted to bring in that prayer. You know, prayer is really important. Being still and knowing that God is God doesn't get better than that. And if you don't really believe in God, you know, like maybe start searching for God. See what you can find. Okay. We have to optimize our vitamin D level. So part of that is getting yourself outside. That's the natural way to get vitamin D. Sometimes people need to supplement. Most people are deficient in vitamin D. Again, finding a good quality supplement is important, because when we're deficient in vitamin D, we can also look like we're anxious and depressed. So what you eat and what you absorb plays a huge role in your mental health and your physical health. So clean up your diet. One diet that's pretty easy to find information on is the Whole30 diet. So there was a woman who developed the Whole30 diet. She was an addict and she wanted to clean up her whole body. So basically you're eating meat, vegetables, fruit, and you're eliminating legumes, dairy, alcohol, sugar. But it's a tough diet in certain ways. But I have a client who was depressed and he was ready to kill himself. And so I suggested that he try this. So within 2 weeks, he was feeling pretty good. By 4 weeks, it's only 30 days because you want to do like a reset with your diet. He was back to himself and he didn't have to take an antidepressant. That was strictly by that. And then he said, oh yeah, and my knees don't hurt me either. So that was really cool. So Anyway, as I said, it's really important, besides the diet and the exercise and the rest, to also include the spiritual component. That's the third leg of that stool, since we're made up of body, mind, and soul. And sitting before the Lord, the creator of heaven and earth, and being still and letting him love us, it doesn't get better than that. And I believe that when I was depressed those 20 years ago, that is what saved my life. Just being able to hold on to that one thread of hope, because it was very hopeless. So I don't know if there's any questions or not. And oh yeah, which foods can help lower anxiety? Well, when we're talking about which foods, well, first of all, you have to make sure which foods for you, but it's eating dark, leafy, fresh vegetables. It's eating grass-fed and pastured meats. It's making sure that things aren't too high in sugar. It doesn't seem like that would be a really obvious thing, but that definitely is the start. And I guess part of it's a trial and error, and are you eliminating your caffeine? Are you eliminating your alcohol? So that's part of it. Part of it is that you can be a detective of yourself to see, like, if you eat this, how do you feel? Again, if you go back to my boys' room, as you clean up your diet, you'll notice. Before, I never thought food bothered me, but if I eat something now, I can feel it. And I need to say, what did I just eat? So I kind of go through and say, oh, it must be that. So the next question is, you mentioned that turmeric can be good, but not for all people. How can we test to see if that food is good for our bodies? Well, if you come to see me, I have a method. It's muscle response testing. But if you want a test, you can do that Viome. That's one. There's a Cyrex 10. There's lots of tests. The reason I like Viome, it's inexpensive. The Cyrex is probably $500 or $600. That and the Viome you could order on your own. Some of those other tests you have to come through me to order them. So, do we have any other questions? Well, thank you for listening in. And if you want to continue your journey to optimal health and wellness, where you get up, you feel good, you have energy all day, you go to sleep, you're in a good mood, you can contact me and we can start the process together.